God is good, and all the time. If there's any people who can attest to God's goodness, so people who started in the holds of slave ships, not knowing from whence they were going to be taken, what was going to be expected of them once they got where they were going. Some of them didn't even make it. Sit down in the bottom of the Atlantic right now. And yet for those who did, to endure 244 years of chattel racial slavery, 70 years legal segregation, a contemporary context of the host of post-racialism, and yet we are their children. And we stand here proud, dignified, and ready to handle the challenges of our time. As they did the challenges of theirs. We're undefeated. Every challenge we've been met with, we have faced, and we have come out victorious and looking good in the process. Can't be nothing else, in the vernacular of my fellow South Carolinians, than the goodness of God. I am indeed delighted to be here at the Wood this morning to Reverend and now Dr. Maria Crompton. Give your pastor a rousing, yes sir, round of applause. It's an earned doctorate, not a bought one. We got a lot of Reverend doctors, but they ain't really doctors. But not for Dr. Crompton. Welcome to the Guild. And congratulations to you. I guess many of you are wondering how a theologian that lives in South Carolina is your preacher for the day on Father's Day in East Orange, New Jersey. How did that minor miracle come about? It started last summer when my assistant frantically rushed to me at the International African American Museum and said, "We have a Presbyterian elder coming in from New Jersey whose name is Jerome Lane." And so I immediately, being an ex-basketball player, thought that it was the Jerome Lane that played basketball for the University of Pittsburgh. He was the one that slammed the ball and ripped the rim off of the backboard. And so I said, Jerome Lane must have gone into the ministry. I said, okay, I'll be happy to go down and greet him. And so when I went down to greet him in the main floor of the museum, I saw a man coming toward me that didn't look like Jerome Lane. But it was Jerome Lane. It was Elder Jerome Lane. And so we struck up a friendship then, and I was supposed to be here in February for Black History Month, but I was booked. April, I was booked, and he said, "What about Father's Day?" And I said, "Is the congregation expecting a Father's Day message of sorts?" He said, "Man, come and say what you need to say." And so I'm going to take him up on that. But of course, I would not be a theologian of integrity if I did not address the moment and the occasion. Nicodemus attests to Jesus' presence in this world as the Son of God. You couldn't perform all of these great works unless you were sent from God. And Jesus ignored what he said in essence and said, "Truly you will not see the kingdom unless you are born again." Now, what does that have to do with Father's Day? What does that have to do with the black struggle for justice? What does it mean to be born again? Not only in our time, but born again in Jesus' time. Given that Jesus came to bring a new reality to the world rooted in freedom and not rigid adherence to doctrinal laws. That he was more concerned about freedom than circumcision, as Paul said to the church at Galatia. You got it all backwards, and Jesus came to invert the traditional theology of his time on its head and put new wine into new wineskins. What does it mean to be born again? First of all, happy Father's Day to all fathers. Congratulations to you, black men in particular. It has not been easy from day one for us to be fathers, particularly in a nation that from day one has committed itself to either containing us, controlling us, or killing us. And in that milieu, some of us have emerged as fathers, and we have taken up the task of raising our children. But more particularly, we have taken up the task of criticizing our community when it needs to be criticized and defending our wives and children when they need to be defended. Before we could become fathers, we came from a mother. And so Father's Day is always inherently for me Mother's Day, because the womb itself that gave birth to the cradle of civilization itself has also given birth to us. And so fatherhood cannot be understood apart from our birth from our mother's womb. I'm going somewhere. As fathers, we must forever remain diligent to making sure we take care of our responsibilities in our communities and in our homes. And that means taking, as we have done in every generation, a nation to task. that has always fancied itself on engaging in some of the more demeaning gestures and some of the more exclusifying gestures to our women. There are two events that have happened recently that garner our attention. The first one, the Southern Baptist Convention voted just a couple of weeks ago to ban women from pastorates and essentially ban them from the priesthood. That here is a religious organization that's supposed to be following Jesus and claims to have an intimate relationship with Jesus. That from an institutional standpoint has somehow drawn an erroneous and sophomoric biblical conclusion that women should not be allowed to preach, that they cannot and do not possess the ability to be dispensers of the word of God, and they are followers of Jesus. Or so they say. They are followers of Jesus. But more importantly for our purposes, most if not all of these men who made this decision are fathers. Then the question becomes, what kind of message are you sending to your mama? What kind of message are you sending to your wife? What kind of message are you sending to your daughter or daughters about a woman's place in this society? It is the latest installment of an old theme that America works best and the world works best when white men are assigning people of color and women to places of subordination, places of inferiority, and more damaging, using this building and using this space to make sacred that placement. It is not I who want you to be in that subordinate position, but God has revealed it to me. Similarly, God has not revealed to them that they should occupy any subordinate status in the society. Other people occupy it, but not them. That's thinking with the flesh, Nicodemus, and not with the spirit. And then just Sunday before last, at what to me is one of the biggest fiascos in American history, a sitting president host a UFC kickboxing event. At the White House, no less. On the South Lawn. Millions of dollars to build it, 5,000 seats. And yet at the end of the program, the young man who won the main event, I think his name is Josh, let me get it right, Josh Hokett, referred to Michelle Obama, a former first lady, as a man, meaning that for him, she exhibited no qualities of femininity, I'm assuming. When if I had a daughter and I was looking for her to exude femininity, Michelle Obama is where I would point her. This has more to do with electoral politics. It's got nothing to do with Democrat and Republican. It has everything to do with Josh Hokett thinking that he lives in a culture where this is not only acceptable behavior, but it is normalized and demanded behavior. Giving birth to no less, again, by religious and Christian institutions. And when we place our stamp on something religiously, it pours out into our cultural and our social and our historical expressions. Because he said Michelle Obama is a man, then he said, right, America? It wasn't a question, it was a rhetorical question. That not only was he making this statement, but he was positive that he had the overwhelming support of Americans who thought the same thing, and Americans who looked like him, not Americans who looked like us. Again, in a subordinate position, the afterthought, we can make demeaning statements, and we should, because we have to keep reminding them of their place. Again, a variation on an old theme from its origins. Even in the midst of framing the Constitution, our founding fathers got it right in terms of not wanting a one-person monarchy like we had in Britain. But in all of their pretensions to freedom and creating a democracy that's rooted in the citizenship of everyone here by birthright, they, number one, maintain chattel slavery. And number two, maintain what? The political subordination of women. And we have been dealing with those two juggernauts because they have been given backing by the founding fathers ever since America has been founded, and will be 250 years old next Friday. And yet we are still dealing with the specter of not only first ladies, black women, being called men, but also a sitting president transposing pictures of apes with their faces. Harkens back to Charles Carroll's A Negro, a Beast, a horrible piece of literary scholarship written in 1900, where he compared black people's humanity and facial features to that of apes and orangutans. And yet you have black people sounding off on social media. I didn't see anything racist about that. That's just politics. He had Joe Biden and his wife up there too, so it's not racist. Fool. Not in the positive sense, but in the negative sense. Fool. The reality is that there's a history connected to demeaning the humanity of black people by portraying them as lower animals. What is the quid pro quo? What is the bottom line? What has been America's obsession theologically from its inception? The reality is that a Christian theology was being fashioned in America from its origins that tried to establish that you can be a Christian and a racist at the same time. That you can be a Christian and a sexist at the same time. You can be a Christian and a neo-capitalist at the same time, when Jesus railed against poverty more than anything else in his ministry. We're in need, Elmwood, of a theological renaissance. We can no longer put new wine in the old wineskins. We can't certainly put old wine into old wineskins. We need to put new wine into new wineskins. This is what Jesus had in mind in his conversation with Nicodemus. That the problem with the world is that it thinks with the flesh and not with the spirit. Nicodemus wanting to know, how can someone be born again, as in being born from a mother? And Jesus was way ahead of him and had to enlighten him. No, you can't be born again, but the rebirth I am talking about is a rebirth of the mind. That's why Paul said, be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by a renewing of the mind, not so you can take flight and transcend the problems you have inherited, but so that you can transcend the old gospel ways of being more committed to law than gospel, being more committed to bondage and fear than freedom. The renewing of the mind is what it means to be born again. The renewing of the mind is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. The renewing of the mind is what it means to be born of the Spirit and not of the flesh. The flesh is oppressive in its very nature, in its very creative presentation. And this is why Jesus said that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. How do we know Jesus? Because I have been anointed to preach the good news to who? The poor. Not to neo-capitalists, not to ignorant politicians, not to politicians who can't even spell dumb, not to politicians who continually demean people of color and think that it is a beautiful expression of manhood, that God frowns on ignorance and God embraces not only intelligence, but God also embraces common sense. And so I say, as I go to my seat, fathers, let us not shirk away from our primary responsibility to be defenders of our women, to be defenders of our children, to be defenders of our community. It has become the basis by which our manhood has had to be measured, namely because of the constant imposition of demeaning and exclusifying gestures imposed on us by the larger community and by the nation. Don't ever shirk away from your responsibility as fathers, realizing that your mothers, your wives, your daughters need you, and the defining characteristic of your fatherhood. Rests on your relationship to all of them. And so, as we move forward with a new theology that's rooted in freedom and not in rigid indoctrination to dogma, keep in mind that God created us in freedom and created us for freedom. God created the universe as a free act, and everything created in it, all life forms are created in that same substance. Which means that as human beings, we are constituted in such a way as to not accept bondage, to not accept racism, to not accept classism. We are programmed by our very makeup to rebel against it. Don't make them think that that rebellion is sinful. I'm sorry, Samuel Cartwright. Droptomania is anti-God and anti-Christian. The notion that black people who were slaves had a psychosis for running away from the plantation because they didn't know how good they had it. We knew how bad it was. You can't sell us on a good condition. We are built to intuit whether we are experiencing something good or something bad. And so as God has created us in that freedom and constituted us in freedom, keep in mind that as we close the gap between divine wisdom and human history, that even when it comes to matters divine, Elmwood, common sense is operative in theological conceptions as well. It doesn't make sense for us to be created in freedom and one group hold another group in bondage. As that great preaching liberator Harriet Tubman said, God did not make men to own other men. In her vernacular, that God did not make human beings to own other human beings. Common sense tells us that our righteous indignation is in fact righteous and not unrighteous. That to teach us that our subordination was ordained of God is the highest sin. It is a deviation from the will of God in the highest order. And this is why Paul, in penning his church to Galatia, as I go to my seat, he said, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. What did Paul mean? He meant that Christ has freed us to pursue our freedom. That we don't have to worry about any dilemmas internally about whether we are fighting for our freedom is sinful in the eyes of God and Jesus. Paul has freed us. And Jesus before him freed us to pursue our freedom. And so our indignation is righteous. And then Paul said this to the church at Galatia. He said, stand firm and never again submit yourselves to a yoke of slavery in any form. And as long as oppressive relationships exist, slavery still exists. The institution of slavery as we understood it in America is over. But it doesn't mean that human beings are still not hell-bent on enslaving other human beings. As Malcolm X said, you either slave or you're free. And if you ain't free, that must mean you're a slave. And so we got work to do, brothers and sisters. Fathers, we got work to do. I know I'm supposed to be commending you on this special day, but I also wanted to challenge you as well. I think it's proper and it's just who I am. And so on this day, keep in mind that because we have been set free by Jesus and by Paul, we don't have to apologize for saying Black Lives Matter. J.D. Vance said, our illustrious vice president, to a group of white people, you don't have to apologize for being white. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But we don't have to apologize for saying we want to be a free people because we were created by God and God will accept nothing less from us or from you. And so I say to you, Elmwood, continue to struggle. Continue to affirm and to see yourselves in the biblical message. It is not blasphemous for us as black people to see ourselves in the biblical story. Don't let people take you on this transcendent ship and say that was only for the Israelites 3,000 years ago. No. That any contemporary interpretation of the Bible and the redemptive history of the Bible and now of America sees the similarities between the Israelites' trek from slavery to the kingdom and our trek from slavery to the kingdom. That the two histories parallel. And as God told Nicodemus, in order for you to see the kingdom, you have to be born again, which means you have to shed yourself of that oppressive conscience and develop a liberating conscience to undergo the process of questioning and unlearning most of what we have been taught and replacing that with the fundamental axiom that I serve a God that's good. And the quintessential feature of that God's goodness is that God created me and built me to be a free human being. And all other branches of your theological root will emerge from that seminal presupposition. And when it does, we have been assured by Jesus and God that the victory shall be ours, as we sang in the life of the church, that the victory has already been won, that it has already been paid in full, which means that in our strivings to free ourselves, as Dr. King said, I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land, meaning that from a theological standpoint, there's nothing Donald Trump can do. There's nothing Josh Holkett could do. There's nothing J.D. Vance can do. There's nothing Ralph Reed can do. There's nothing that Sean Hannity can do. There was nothing that Bull Connor and Lester Maddox could do to stop this freedom train, because he said, behold, I am the resurrection and the life, which means that my ascension to life does not go through the crucible of white approval. It goes through the crucible of divine approval. And it is the only seat with which I am concerned. Now, if you want to come along with me, good white folk, come on. But your earthly hold on the black community has no sway in God's eyes. I have overcome the power of death. Oh, death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? That Jesus overcame the power of death, and just as Jesus overcame the power of death, so too will we overcome the power of death. We will overcome the power of white supremacy, and we will return to the majestic heights of freedom that we saw before we encountered European humanity. And that'll be a great day. That'll be the day of Jubilee, and that'll be the day that we march into God's kingdom in a new liberated reality, and how we'll end our journey that began at our mother's wombs in the flesh and ends up in God's kingdom in the spirit. And so, Elmwood, I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and be with you this morning. To the fathers, happy Father's Day to all of you, and continue to be good fathers, continue to represent your communities, continue to be responsible black men, young and old, as we continue to press our way to the light known as human liberation. Thank you for listening. May peace and power forever be yours. And may God bless you.